And our first question tonight, is an army takeover a realistic possibility in Pakistan, or is an army coup perhaps unlikely in the times we live in? Do tell us what you think. We have a former diplomat, former secretary in the Ministry of External Affairs, Mr. K.C. Singh, who's with us. We'll also be going across to guests in Pakistan shortly. Mr. Singh, your first thoughts on what has happened today? We've seen this crisis growing, it's brewing. But is this the most serious confrontation now, you think, between the two sides?
Well, it had been in the making, as you said, for some time, and something had to give. Essentially, I think the critical point was when the Supreme Court started going after the government on the corruption issue. The government then realized they are in a corner. Army was also watching to see if the Supreme Court takes the president out, then nobody gets blood on their hands. So the government has hit back by taking it to a constitutional issue and say that the Army Chief and DGISI had no business giving affidavits to the Supreme Court without the government vetting it. Now, who is the one? Now, DGISI and the Army Chief say that they sent the affidavits to the Defense Secretary, who should have then obtained the approval of the Defense Minister, the Prime Minister, and then gone through the Attorney General. Apparently, the Defense Secretary, in collusion with them, just forwarded them to the Supreme Court. And that gave Supreme Court an excuse to look into it. Now, the government's view was that we have a judicial, we can have the parliamentary committee look into it. And you have the unsavory situation where the ambassador who's been sacked is hiding in the house of the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Now, if that is the situation, obviously something was going to give. And therefore, government has actually chosen high moral ground, forced the Supreme Court on their back foot. Let them take a position. If the Chief Justice is that independent, certainly he cannot accept a situation where the army functions independently of the civilian government. But then remember that Nawaz Sharif tried the same thing. He sacked one army chief, General Karamat walked away. But when he tried sacking a second army chief is when you had a coup. So it's been, everybody has been pushed to the edge.
But is this the same Pakistan today where an army takeover in that way can still happen?
You're absolutely correct, because what are the preconditions? Preconditions are either the Prime Minister is extremely unpopular, there is no other option. That was happening in case of Nawaz Sharif. He's seen as high-handed, as in case of Bhutto. Then the army steps in, but there should be some popular support. Or does the army now want to take charge? Then they will come into confrontation with the US, because US are still in Afghanistan. They haven't gone away. They will be... So far, they have cooperated.
So not the same. Basically, the situation is very different, is what you're saying. Let me just go across first to Mr. Gohar Ayub Khan, who's the former Foreign Minister of Pakistan, and he joins us on the line from Islamabad. Mr. Khan, what is your assessment of this confrontation today? We're watching very closely here in India. This has ramifications for everyone in this region. Is this a full-blown crisis? And, you know, is a military coup really possible?
Military coup is possible any time, but it's not likely to happen because the scenario has totally changed, and the Prime Minister has been running and giving statements against the army. First, he said he will not accept a state within a state, and everybody knows a state within a state is basically the army that can run the postal service, the railways, the airlines, print stamps, print currency, etc. So after a few days, he then took a somersault and said that he was referring to the Defense Secretary, not to the Army. Now he's given a statement that the Army Chief and Director General of Military Intelligence have violated the Constitution, and they have exceeded their limits. But a reply to the Supreme Court was sent to the Defense Secretary, who in turn sent it to the Attorney General. And the Attorney General, if there was any lacuna in it and had to be vetted by the government, should have referred it back to the Law Secretary. But he gave it to the Supreme Court. Now, making a statement that both these officers and high-ranking officers of the Pakistan Army have violated the Constitution is a very, very serious charge. And they have taken note of it. I don't think so there will be a military coup. But over tonight or early morning, the Prime Minister might be losing some coalition partners, and the coalition partners would not be happy on the situation. There is a strong possibility that Mr. Gilani, the Prime Minister, would be in serious difficulty to retain his post. And in due course of time, the President also, who is a very unpopular man in Pakistan, would also possibly be exited.
And that brings me to my next question. We also have Ikram Sehgal, well-known defence analyst, joining us on the line from Karachi. Mr. Sehgal, then do you see a situation then where early elections in Pakistan are then the most likely scenario?
I think one must get things into proper perspective, and that is yesterday, a bench of the Supreme Court on an entirely different matter on corruption ruled against the government in the sense of they had the observation that the Prime Minister was in violation of his oath and so was the President in not obeying the orders of the Supreme Court. Now, they gave till Monday, they gave 6 options, they gave till Monday, and the only dispensation they really gave outside the jurisdiction of the law was that they said that you can also go back to the electorate. Now, 6 days hence, that is on January 16th, the Prime Minister would have lost his job anyway because the observation of violation of oath was very clear-cut, and even if a 16-member bench opposed that, that's the end of the story. Now, I think what the Prime Minister was really trying to do was to provoke the army into a coup. I agree entirely with Mr. Gohar Ayub Khan that this is not going to happen. The army is not going to get goaded into unsavory action when they know that the Supreme Court is going to take them out legally and constitutionally. Why should the army give them this government the satisfaction of taking them out illegally and unconstitutionally so that they can go and chest beat all around the world that they've been taken out by this army which has got ulterior motives, etc. So the point is very simple. They were trying to commit suicide at the hands of the army rather than face being eliminated at the hands of the Supreme Court. That, in a nutshell, is the problem. And the firing of the Defense Secretary is just a pawn. The man had been in service even 3 days, and he did not do anything wrong, as Mr. Gohar Ayub suggested. He sent it on to the Attorney General, and if the Attorney General had anything to it, he could have gone and had it vetted by the Law Secretary.
Right. But so what you're both saying, the bottom line of what you're both saying is that you basically see the Prime Minister then stepping down in the days ahead, paving the way for an early election. Mr. K.C. Singh, as we wrap this up, is that then the most likely scenario we're looking at? And how should India look at this?
I think I think, frankly speaking, you're being very polite and saying the Prime Minister is going to step down. The Prime Minister is going to be shoved out of office because he's not going to go. He's going to go kicking and screaming. Because that's the way he wants to go down in the Brittle Marty. He's got votes to get, and he wants to have the sympathy vote with him. So that is what India should not feel. India should feel heartened by the fact that this time, despite deliberate provocation, and it was quite a provocation, the army has not moved. I would like to quote a saying of Sant Tzu: if you wait by the river long enough, you'll see the corpse of your enemy go floating by. And the army doesn't like Mr. Zardari one bit. He's the most unpopular president that Pakistan has ever seen. He's corrupt to the core. As far as Mr. Gilani is concerned, he probably beats him hands down. And that was the reason why the Supreme Court said that you are not allowing action to be taken against corrupt people, you're not allowing the law to take its course, and therefore you are in violation of your oath of office.
Right.
NDTV's Cricket app, Android and iPhone. Fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.